This podcast is brought to you by People's Food Co-op, a community-owned grocery store in downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin and Rochester, Minnesota, that promotes local farmers and producers through an emphasis on fresh, healthy, sustainable food. Anyone can shop. Everyone is welcome. For more information, visit them online at pfc.coop. This podcast is also brought to you by Trempealeau County Tourism. Whether your idea of fun is bicycling, hiking, or canoeing, afterwards head into the heart of one of their welcoming communities to experience historic architecture, independent shops, and locally owned dining establishments. Visit Trempealeau County Tourism online. The Great River Shakespeare Festival is running now through July 31st, featuring Twelfth Night, and the African Company presents Richard III and more at Minnesota's premier Shakespeare Festival in Winona, Minnesota. Buy tickets online at grsf.org. Great River, great drama. We connect with Thomas Kelly and Lee Rosh of The Executives. We hear about early interest in music, origin of the band, 60s rock and roll influences, and what's coming up for this well-known area band. You can find more conversations, food reviews, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
Well, I guess I'll start. I'm Lee Rosh. I was born in the Chicago area. As a youngster, we moved around quite a bit, the Milwaukee area, Nashville, back to Chicago, and I came to La Crosse in 1989. I'm one of those people that, as a kid, I watched the Ed Sullivan Show when the Beatles came on and had their live performance, and it was a kind of a watershed moment for a young teenager. I persuaded my parents to let me start taking guitar lessons, and I joined a band called the Spectres. Later, I ended up in another band called the Bel Esprit, and then a band called EYE. We played lots of different local Chicago area venues in high school and the early years of college. We never made it as a big band, but we did play as an opening act for some of the bands of the day, the Buckinghams or the Shadows of Night. So I had a wonderful experience. Then life intervened and I stopped doing any music really for over 25 years. And then I was approached by Tim Tracy and the guys that formed the Executives. And this was 1997. And that's how things kind of restarted.
I'm Tom Kelly. I was born in the Quad Cities in Davenport, Iowa. And much like Lee, in February 1964, I was gathered with my family to watch the Ed Sullivan Show, and the Beatles came on. It seems like across America, thousands of bands started that night. I was only 12 at that point, but much like Lee, I got a real low-price Marco Polo guitar, a little classical guitar, and started learning how to play that. Found some friends at school, and we started a band. Really haven't looked back. So the band in that day was called the Todd, a 5-piece 60s band. And then we moved on with later bands called Headwinds and Lockspeed. So I played up until the point I got drafted. Uncle Sam gave me a call. So I went to Germany and took some time off while I served over there. Came back and kind of started my career. I started for Lee Enterprises, a newspaper company down the Quad Cities, and moved to La Crosse in 1988. So I followed Lee pretty closely there. We met at a Chamber of Commerce mixer. We kind of knew each other. As we were standing around socializing, we started talking about music and found out that several of us had been in bands from the 1960s. So we decided to get together for a single performance to play at Riverfest, where we had a chance to play there. So we played in a separate stage on the far side of the Riverfest grounds. It was made out of metal. I think it was probably 100 degrees that day. So we had our first roasting as a band. So had a great time though. And like I say, we grew up with and loved playing 60s music. And that was kind of the bond between all of us. We've continued that now. So this is our 25th anniversary this year. A long time to hold a band together.
You bill yourself, just from your influences talking about it, but a 60s rock and roll band. Is that where your influences largely preside when you're covering songs, or?
Yes, we're still learning new songs from the 1960s, if that's possible. But yeah, that's kind of our love of music, is that Beatle period. It's a happy time. After President Kennedy was assassinated, it was like the Beatles gave almost a rebirth to almost a sense of joy out there. We still, I mean, the music I still love and like to listen to is still, I've got all my Beatles albums. I got Birds, I got Rolling Stones. I still listen to the old vinyl records and still love that whole period.
Yeah, I do think one of the things that I enjoy is playing the songs of that era, staying true to the songs of that era, but we do our own versions. I call it, we executize them. And that keeps it fun. It allows us to apply our own creative thoughts to how we deliver the songs.
I've known about your band for quite a while, just from Moon Tunes and those sort of events and all of the kind of the local community stuff. You've been together for 25 years. I know it's not your full-time gig, but you guys definitely show a passion for it. How was COVID for you guys for, those 2 years?
Well, it's a bit challenging. We have a nice studio space where we could spread out. So we were able to set up pretty far apart from each other and observe COVID protocol. So we were able to practice. In a lot of ways, we like practicing as much as we like playing. It's just kind of a good night to get together. I always said it was like bowling night for a band here. We get together and have some fun and play some music. So we were able to get through that. We did one outdoor gig, which is a drive-by fundraiser. I can't remember Lee probably remembers the name.
It was the Cooley Council. It was a fundraiser for them.
That's right. Yeah. And they had a Bratfest that we played outdoors. People drove by and waved at us, and we kept playing for the 3 hours. I think that was the only COVID performance. So,
yeah, as Tom said, I enjoy, but I'm speaking for the band. We enjoy practicing as much as any other performance, and we're pretty religious about it. We practice every single week. That helps us keep sharp. It keeps us tighter, but then it means we can add new old songs into our repertoire. And I don't know how many songs we have. That maybe was it about 70? I don't know. We got a lot of songs.
That's right. Yes.
So then it gives us an opportunity to keep fresh on all of them too.
So what's next? What are you excited for coming up this, summer 2022?
Well, we've got a bunch of gigs coming up. We, at the very first Moon Tunes, it was called Noon Tunes. So we've continued with that. So we've got a great Moon Tune show coming up again this year. Had thousands of people last year's performance. It was almost overwhelming. We love to do the concerts in the park. So we're doing Pullman and Sparta and Spring Grove. Lee found a chance for us this year to do Ashley for the Arts. So we're going to add that to our repertoire as well.
Yeah, we do have a fundraiser coming up. It's a benefit dance for the La Crosse Community Foundation. It's our way of celebrating 25 years of performing by giving something back to the community. So we're hoping to raise some money for that cause.
Kind of touched on the 60s vibe, but what else can people expect from your shows if they've never seen you before?
Well, I think one of the things we play with period instruments. So one side of the stage has all Vox equipment. The other side of the stage is all Fender. So we're true to the era. That's kind of cool. We have a good time when we play, and we have a lot of interaction with the audience. One of our favorite things to do is we allow somebody to come up on stage and play cowbell with the band. So they get to front the band playing cowbell on a song. So we found at least 2 or 3 people that actually had a sense of rhythm.
Well,
for 25 years.
And if you do that, you get this a very valuable collector's item, a T-shirt that says "I played lead cowbell with the executives." So that's really in demand.
That's awesome. Well, I asked you, before we started recording, but are you going to work any original music into your set, or is it basically just honoring the 60s?
There's been some discussion about doing some of the songs that I wrote with the Silvers. Some of those songs actually were written back in the 1960s. So there's at least 3 or 4 of them that we could bring forward for the band and record them. So that's certainly a possibility.
I've got a song or 2 in my repertoire that the thing is, we've really been focused on being ready for the performances we have. We've got a full season coming up, so we want to make sure we're sharp with the material that we need to deliver.
Is there any particular album that's been something that's been kind of hold dear to your heart? That's just that one album?
Well, for me, I'd have to say Revolver. That was the Beatles album that kind of turned the page for rock and roll music. So between that and the second side of Abbey Road, those are my 2 favorites.
It's interesting because at that time I was in the Chicago area, so I was a huge Beatles fan. I love the Animals. but there was a lot of soul music in the Chicago area at that time too. So I also became a fan of playing some of those old soul classics from the 60s too.
I'm super excited for Moon Tunes. Love to take my family down there every Thursday, so I can't wait for that and those shows happening. But if people want to find out more, what's the best avenue for them to follow?
The best way to find information about our band is Facebook. Our Facebook name is The Executives 60s Rock and Roll when you do a search for us. So you'll find us there, and we have some videos on there. We have the information about upcoming shows, just other things that we think our fans would appreciate.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.